The plan for this video is next. First of all, I'm gonna show you why you need it, how it works, pretty advanced stuff like residual compression. The most important in this video is 10 disadvantages of master bus limiters. The secret is you choose master bus limiters based on these 10 disadvantages. So it's pretty cool. I'm gonna show you like 7 or 8 different master bus limiters. I remind you that these videos are just additional entertaining stuff to one of the most advanced audio production and mixing course. It's in Skype 9 months, and if you want really serious education on audio production and mixing, mastering, you can attend for free one trial class to really check it out, what you get. Send me an email if you're interested, email on the screen and in the end of this video. And in description box, this course has even homework checking, and in real time I show you how to improve your mixes, and we even compare your mixes to the top sounding mixes of all time. Using master bus limiter is a part of a mastering. So when your mix is ready, or your client already mixed the song, or you work as a mastering engineer and you work with mixers send you a final project, and your goal is to give final touch to their mixes. Maybe you can improve something if something wrong there, but sometimes it's even your responsibility not to change great sounding mix. You just need to boost final volume of the song, given as least as possible negative artifacts, which is usually supposed to be with master limiters. Today I'm gonna show you 3 different projects. One of these will be Ice Cube song. I produced this remix many years ago. I have this my old project. We're gonna pretend like this song is already mixed. Let's imagine we don't have any access to all these faders, any plugins over here. As you can see over here, I use SSL Master Bus Compressor to glue tracks together. It's not a part of a mastering, we will consider it like a part of a mixing. So, mix is done, and we have master limiters over here on the master bus. This is our reference track. Reference track by the game, and 50 Cent sounds like this.
Wait, drums, you don't want none. Nigga better run. When beef is on, I pop that trunk.
Our track.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here. Down to get this out of town party cracking. Help me back in so we can smoke a dub. Down to bump all these freaks at the club.
So as you can see, they are comparable in volume. If you're not gonna use master limiter, so basically your song will be much quieter like this.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here.
Of course, we don't like all this loudness war, but honestly, sometimes you have no choice. If your listener will compare this kind of like top sounding reference track to your mix, and your mix will be much quieter, nobody will consider your mix like professionally done. Again, don't forget, when I say master bus limiter, I don't mean it's a part of a mixing process. It can be mixing process, but if you go with traditional way, you mix track pretty quietly, and then during mastering stage it can be mastering engineer work, or if you mixed your song on your own, you can be in shoes of a mastering engineer for your own song later. So it's called Maximizer or master bus limiter. Yeah, I know your jokes about my paint skills. This application called Paint, it's fine, it's cool. You never put waveforms higher than this line, because otherwise peaks will be cut like this, and you're gonna have almost like square wave in your song. It sounds harsh, it sounds annoying. Sometimes your monitor sounds relatively smooth, and some people say, okay, clipping is not bad for me. You know what, honestly, it depends on what kind of monitoring system you use. In some headphones, in some specific monitors, especially which reveal upper mid-range in very kind of a detailed way, sometimes this clipping really sounds very harsh, and you can just think it's fine on your smooth sounding, modern sounding monitors, but in some monitors it can be very annoying and very aggressive. So you always protect yourself not going higher than 0 dbFS. Limiter is a dynamic processor which works with a threshold. You put the threshold. I'm gonna use red line as a threshold. Threshold is just a parameter in your plugin. You drop it down. Over here, as you can see, we have this parameter. It doesn't matter how low you put threshold. Most important, how much you really attenuate. You know, it depends. You know, if your mix come into the limiter with minus 20 decibels peaks, to make at least some attenuation, you should put this threshold pretty low to really have some boost in volume.
Maniac Mac here. Down to get this out.
As you can see, I suppress like sometimes 5 dB, 3 dB, so it's really actually not too much limitation here. You put this threshold below. Then limiter is a dynamic processor which works with the ratio. Ratio is pretty huge, it's not a compressor. Don't mix limiters with compressors. It has very high ratio, like 100 to 1, 1000 to 1, or infinity to 1, like totally super high ratio. What it means all peaks above the red line will be suppressed in volume, but they will not be cut like with the clipping. They will be suppressed in volume, they will be squeezed. So you basically put these peaks below I'm gonna cut it just visually, but don't forget, actually peaks in this case will be just dropped in volume. They will be like round out, you know, they will sound much smoother than in typical clipping. So it will be smooth. It will, these peaks will be just suppressed in volume, so you're not gonna have really kind of any harsh signal here. Limiters have so-called automatic makeup gain. Automatic makeup gain just sees that right now you have some space between black line and red line, so it compensates this volume increase in amplitude of your final waveform until it will be up to black line. That's it. So in this way you bring volume up and your song sounds louder. Let's imagine it's a drum, let's say snare drum, and your limiter should suppress some volume. But attack time, it's a period where dynamic processor reaches its maximum suppression. It can take this period of time, let's say from here to here, which means first peaks during this period still can be not suppressed enough. So basically speaking, only after attack period of time, your peaks really gonna be suppressed like this. And that's why you really don't have opportunity to bring some peaks higher in volume, so limiter is not effective. So that's why in limiters usually you have super short attack to really start working instantly. Dynamic processor says alarm, alarm, let's work instantly, and it just bam, and you have no peaks above the red line. And then limiter can normalize your level up to 0 dbFS, up to digital 0. First peak will be suppressed like this. Limiter should stop working to really consider the next peak as a kind of a new event. For this, limiter should kind of stop working instantly like this, right? But the problem is if limiter stops working so fast, sometimes you have this kind of clicks and like dirty, kind of like almost like broken waveform. You know, when waveform goes up like this, so quickly that your waveform just will be rewritten almost like with 90 degrees angles, which sounds like digital click, you know, like click, click, and so many times it happens because in one note you have so many peaks. Sometimes it's really subtle, some people really don't notice it, but to be totally honest, it really affects us on our subconsciousness negatively. You really hear all this dirt, all this noise, and you say, oh my god, it sounds just like really annoying, you don't like the result. To explain it properly, it needs a bit more time. I definitely explain all this stuff on the course. I explain different curves of release, what exactly going on, what benefits of short release, or what benefits of long release. If your release period will be too short, you have clicks, right? So it's really bad problem. So that's why you should have actually at least some release. If you have a release too long, let's say during this period of time, your release kind of stop working. Release is like how quickly your limiter stops working. You know, it's like inertia. For example, Titanic go into the iceberg, but it doesn't stop instantly. The same happens with limiters, you know, you can hit the next peak. And when you hit the next peak with a relatively long release, the next peak also will be suppressed more than it's supposed to be. So basically, the second peak on this picture is supposed to be suppressed on its own in volume, but your limiter didn't stop working from first peak. So amount of compression for the second peak will be more than it's supposed to be. So that's why you're gonna have more volume drop and some peaks not gonna be just below the red line, but actually lower than that. And that's why efficiency of volume boost can be lower. Honestly, I really don't feel like I explained it very properly due to lack of time, you know. If you go to the course, don't worry, I explain all this stuff very detailed. You can ask any questions you want, you know. The problem is, with long release, you start to get more compression. You hear more squeezed volume, you hear more squeezed mix. It can actually affect us on your balance in the mix. Volume balance, you hear some overcompression sometimes because of that, and your volume efficiency, this kind of a volume boost, not that effective. You kind of forces your limiter to do more and more and more, and your music like more squashed, but volume is still not enough. You always should find that kind of the shortest possible release in master limiter, but in a way where it still sounds natural, smooth, and doesn't sound like with those clicks or too kind of harsh. On a short side, benefit is volume boost and no overcompression. But disadvantage of it, it's a possibility to have clicks and harshness, so it can be awful. On the other side, it's smoothness. Benefit is smoothness, but disadvantage of the long release is overcompression and not efficient volume boost. So you always should find that middle ground where it sounds just right. But don't forget, I'm talking about only classic limiter. In terms of type of limiters, you have many different options. Sometimes you can see master bus limiters which have long attack and long release parameter. What it means, those limiters is not just one device. Actually, in those plugins, sometimes you can meet different technologies. Obviously, those companies don't reveal the truth because they don't want somebody copy their technology. So in reality, sometimes they use Brickwall Limiter combined with like typical smooth limiter, or it can be like a clipper combined with a limiter. So that's why sometimes you confuse, you open some plugin like Fabfilter Pro-L 2, right? And you see this attack and release parameter, and you see attack 275 milliseconds. You instantly would have clipping if your attack on a limiter 275 milliseconds. But this plugin doesn't have any clipping. How it's possible? It's just because they have these parameters not for Brickwall side of this plugin. It's actually that kind of smoothing limiter. During 275 milliseconds, Brickwall Limiter actually cuts peaks in a smooth way, in a better way than just clipping, you know, and that's why it doesn't go higher than Digital Zero. Let's try for fun some other plugins. For example, T-Rex 3 Brickwall Limiter. In this case, as you can see, you have this release time. So let me show you exactly what's going on with release time. Now release time is very short. Limiter will try to stop working after suppressing some peak before the next peak.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
You have parameter called output ceiling, but check it out, my master bus fader. My master bus fader stays minus 0.28, which means I protect my mix from so-called true peaks clipping. And I have a release time, 0.1 is the shortest. It sounds very loud.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking. Homie back in, so we can smoke a...
As you can see, amount of volume correction is fine. It's like 2 dB sometimes, so it's very decent kind of limiter with very few decibels of suppression, but it gives you maximum volume enough to be competitive, to build the loudest song. Then what you do, you increase release time. Let's say now it's 20 milliseconds.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
Let's compare. This is 0.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
20.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
When it's 0, you hear louder kick and snare. Kick and snare sounds punchier, they sound raw, they sound dirty, you hear even like a bit dirt in the sound.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
It's pronounced, it's very punchy, and you hear loud kick and snare. If you have 20, let's say, you hear much smoother kick and snare, and they actually don't sound loud. Let's say if people, so you hear kick right now quieter than vocal.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
Before, kick was louder than the vocal, so this is how it was before.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
So kick kind of above the vocal, and vocal doesn't jump out from the mix. So people who mixed a song in this way, they will appreciate short release just because of vocal doesn't start to be louder than the kick. You know, exactly in the way how people mixed it. If you're gonna be using long releases, sometimes it can rebalance your mix, making vocals louder than kick.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
So vocal right now like above the kick, and the overall volume of the mix a bit quieter. Of course it sounds much smoother, right? It's a benefit. It sounds smoother, you have no dirt, no kind of artifacts, you have lower efficiency of volume boost. So you kind of have to actually increase input level right now. As you can see, this plugin doesn't have threshold, but it doesn't mean anything, because threshold is fixed around 0, and instead of lowering the threshold, now you bring waveform to the threshold. It sounds pleasant, it sounds smooth, but it has, first of all, you hear some compression in the signal, more compression than mixers did. So people who ordered your mastering, they will not be happy with the result.
Maniac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party crack.
You know, kick like too squeezed, you know, it doesn't sound open, doesn't sound bold and punchy, it sounds weak and smooth, too smooth. Secondly, you change the balance. Vocal right now is the most pronounced in the mix, and kick a bit like above the vocal, while actually people mix this song to make kick like above the vocal, you know, to make kick the most powerful part of a song. With the snare you can have the same problem, let's say. So that's why sometimes the work of mastering engineer is not just to improve music. Sometimes it's all about keeping the great mix. You know, let's imagine Chris Lord-Alge is a mixer of this song, for example, right? Very known audio engineer, all that stuff, you know, and you spoil his mix. Do you think you will be very kind of a mastering engineer in demand after this? Of course not. If you want to be great mastering engineer in demand, especially where different mixers really prefer you to be their mastering engineer, you really should know where not to change their mixes, you know, so it's super important skill of a mastering engineer. So definitely you should find middle ground where it will 0.1 a bit dirty, so maybe 1 millisecond, 2 millisecond can be smooth enough, but it will not be making kick too squeezed like this.
Brainiac with Maniac Mac here, down to get this out of town party cracking.
By the way, other 10 seconds on my course. So on my course we have homework check-in. I open your projects in real time and we compare your projects to top sounding mixes of all time, and I improve your mixes, showing what to do, how I think, how I make decisions, what's wrong. In this case you can see exactly reactions and you learn how to listen to, you learn philosophy and approaches in mixing, but not just like feedback, your mix is good or your mix is bad, but I really show you details about your mix and how to work with that. So doing it for 6 years, I already have so much experience in really checking your homeworks. It's really standardized process, and you see not only your own project, but projects of students from your group. So it's not like just one experience with some specific situation in your mix, but you see other mixes and you absorb 7-8 times more situations than it could be if you learn just one-on-one. So learning in groups is a super huge benefit from this course. Don't forget, you can attend one trial class to check it out. By default, this plugin has 1 millisecond. By default, this plugin has so-called ARC function, which is automatic release control. When limiter sees that you kind of supposed to be attenuating too much, it prolongs release, it makes release a bit longer just to smooth out transitions. By the way, notice that the skills of mastering engineer is not just like knowing some stuff, it's all about understanding all little molecules of audio production, understanding how in some plugins you can smooth out something with release and in some plugins you can't. This is an example. For example, now we have this electric guitar. I specifically actually force this limiter to work more than it should be, but on some songs, in some specific situations, some limiters actually give you much more dirt than other limiters. And now I specifically prepared some example for you. For example, this is a guitar. This electric guitar right now is being processed by this master limiter called Weiss MM-1 from Softube. This limiter relatively smooth sound. The same, for example, can do plugin called Invisible Limiter. It's set up absolutely in the same way, and it also sounds pretty smooth. So guitar sounds, of course, it's distorted guitar, but it doesn't sound with some crazy artifact. So it sounds pretty smooth. And check it out, let's say this plugin. It's a plugin from Steven Slate. It's actually a very good master bass limiter. But in some songs, you really start to hear this kind of like harshness, you know, when transition from peak to peak like more broken. So this is how it sounds, absolutely with the same setting. Do you hear this kind of almost like it's a crackling noise on the background of these guitars? You don't hear anything like that in Invisible Limiter or Weiss Limiter. So this kind of a dirty broken noise of this like countless number of clicks. Of course, this plugin has some features to smooth out your electric guitar. For this you have ITP parameter polishing transition from peak to peak. With a pretty decent number on this parameter, like minus 0.2, minus 0.3, it will not be that effective. I still hear in the right monitor, right now I'm sitting a bit towards right monitor, I hear this kind of a dirty broken noises. You know, so to really smooth out this problem, I should put ITP really low, like this, almost to -1, and it will be smoothed out. Yes, it's smoothed out now, but the problem is I sacrificed volume boost. So this limiter will not be even close to previous limiters in volume. So for example, Invisible Limiter with the same setting, absolutely 10.7 gain, right now sounds much louder but still smooth. And Steven Slate's plugin sounds also smooth, but it sounds much quieter. So this plugin doesn't work for some mixes where you have some kind of some specific instruments which really forces this Brickwall Limiter to overdo it. And it's not about dynamic perception parameter or low punch detail. I mean, any settings will not help in some mixes. But honestly, I really like this Master Bass Limiter on other type of mixes where it's really suitable, and then it's one of the greatest Master Bass Limiters. So this course consists the fullest theory possible. We have more than 150 hours. When I designed this course, I wanted the course where people don't need to learn anything else after this course. I wanted something like the most full and the most fattest course ever, to allow people to become professional audio engineers just taking this course. Also, this course is really affordable, because for the same amount of money you can buy one average microphone or one average pair of monitors, but buying pretty any stuff of this kind doesn't guarantee that you're really gonna get top sounding results. This course guarantees top results, while buying some equipment or 3-4 plugins really doesn't guarantee anything. And you pay monthly, so it's very easy for you to make payments. And check how this course works on your own. Email on the screen.